The emergency meeting room on the space station buzzed with angry voices. Representatives from 12 different alien species sat around the metal table, their faces showing fear and disgust. At the head of the table, Ambassador Zektar from the Kresh Empire slammed his clawed hand down hard. "Verdania is a death world," he declared, his reptilian eyes glowing red with anger. "We lost 6 good soldiers in just 2 days. The planet wants to kill everything that lands on it." The other aliens nodded in agreement. Commander Thulak from the beetle-like Zeph species clicked his mandibles nervously. "Our scanners cannot see through the thick jungle canopy. The trees block all our technology. We cannot even tell what dangers wait below." "The ground is covered in acid water," added Dr. Yalara, the jellyfish-like scientist from the Aquatic Federation. "It burned through our protective suits in minutes. No civilized being can survive down there." Ambassador Zektar stood up, his tall frame casting a shadow across the room. "The Galactic Council has made its decision. Planet Verdania is officially declared uninhabitable. No colony ships will be sent there. No exploration teams will land on its surface. The planet is too dangerous for any intelligent life." The other representatives murmured their agreement. Verdania had defeated 3 separate survey missions. Each time, the teams had barely escaped with their lives. The jungle seemed to actively hunt anything that entered it. Plants moved like animals. Vines grabbed at ships trying to land. The very air seemed poisonous to most species. Meanwhile, 3 star systems away, Jake Martinez sat in the recreation room of the human exploration ship New Horizon. He was reading the mission reports on his tablet, his brown eyes growing wider with each page. The 32-year-old engineer had short black hair and calloused hands from years of building things that other people said were impossible. "This is incredible," Jake muttered to himself, scrolling through the alien survey data. "Look at this ecosystem. The trees grow in perfect spirals. The branch structure could support massive weight loads, and these root systems, they're like natural foundations." His friend Amy Carter walked over and looked at the screen. "Jake, you're not seriously thinking about volunteering for Verdania, are you? The aliens just declared it a death world." Jake grinned and looked up at her. "Amy, that's exactly why I want to go. Everyone else sees problems. I see the most amazing engineering challenge in the galaxy." Amy shook her head. "The acid water alone would kill you in minutes." "Only if I go down to ground level," Jake replied, pointing at the holographic images. "But look at these trees. They're 300 feet tall. The canopy is like a natural city waiting to be built. Who says we have to live on the ground?" Captain Lisa. Wong's voice came over the ship's speakers. "All senior staff report to the bridge immediately." Jake and Amy made their way to the bridge, where Captain Wong was studying the same reports. She was a small woman with graying hair, but her voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded ships for 20 years. "I suppose you've all heard about the Galactic Council's decision," she said, looking around at her crew. "Verdania is off limits. The aliens consider it too dangerous for colonization." "But Captain," Jake interrupted, stepping forward, "what if they're wrong?" "What if they're just approaching it the wrong way?" Captain Wong raised an eyebrow. "Explain." Jake pulled up the survey data on the main screen. Every alien team that went to Verdania tried to set up base camps on the ground level. They used metal structures and synthetic materials. But look at what happened to those materials. The planet destroyed them. The vines attacked metal. The acid ate through artificial compounds. "Your point?" Captain Wong asked. "My point is that they were fighting the planet instead of working with it. What if we tried a different approach?" What if we built with natural materials? What if we lived in the trees instead of on the ground? The other crew members exchanged worried glances. Science Officer Ben Rodriguez spoke up. "Jake, that's incredibly dangerous. We have no idea what lives in those trees." "We have some idea," Jake replied, pulling up more data. "The alien scans show that the upper canopy is actually quite stable. The dangerous predators seem to live on the ground level. The trees themselves appear to be cooperative." "Cooperative?" Captain Wong asked skeptically. "Look at these growth patterns," Jake said, highlighting sections of the scans. "The trees don't just grow randomly. They create platforms, natural bridges. It's almost like they want something to live in them." Amy stepped beside Jake. "Captain, Jake's always been good at solving impossible problems. Remember the asteroid mining station? Everyone said it couldn't be built, but Jake found a way." Captain Wong studied the data for several minutes. Finally, she looked directly at Jake. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Give me 1 week," Jake said confidently. 1 week on Verdania. I'll take basic supplies and see if it's really as impossible as the aliens think. If I'm wrong, you can come get me. If I'm right, we might have just found humanity's most unique colony." "Absolutely not," Captain Wong said immediately. "I won't risk my crew on such a dangerous mission." "Then don't risk your crew," Jake replied. "Send just me. I volunteer. If the planet kills me, you've only lost 1 person instead of a whole team." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew Jake well enough to recognize his stubborn determination. When he believed in something, he never gave up. "Jake," Captain Wong said softly, "this isn't like fixing a broken engine. This is a planet that has killed experienced alien soldiers." "Those aliens tried to conquer the planet," Jake said. "I want to join it. There's a difference." Captain Wong looked around at her crew. She could see the worry in their faces, but also something else. Curiosity. The humans had always been different from other species. Where others saw obstacles, humans often saw opportunities. "If I allow this," she said slowly, "you would have constant communication with the ship, daily reports. And if anything goes wrong, you request immediate extraction." Jake nodded eagerly. "Agreed. And you would take emergency supplies. Enough for 2 weeks, not 1. "Yes, Captain." Captain Wong sighed deeply. "Against my better judgment, I'm approving this mission. But Jake, I want you to understand something. The Galactic Council has declared this planet uninhabitable. If you prove them wrong, you won't just be solving an engineering problem. You'll be challenging everything the galaxy thinks it knows about impossible worlds." Jake smiled widely. "Captain, that's exactly what I'm hoping to do." Jake's shuttle broke through the thick clouds surrounding Verdania, and his breath caught in his throat. Below him stretched an endless green ocean of treetops, so dense he couldn't see any gaps between them. The canopy looked like a solid carpet, of leaves broken only by the occasional giant tree that towered above the rest. "New Horizon, this is Jake." He spoke into his communication device. "I'm beginning my descent. The canopy is even thicker than the alien report suggested." "Copy that, Jake," came Captain Wong's voice. "Remember, find a safe landing spot and establish communication immediately." Jake guided his shuttle toward what looked like a small clearing between the giant trees. As he got closer, he realized it wasn't really a clearing, just a spot where the branches were slightly less dense. He would have to push through the canopy to reach anything solid enough to land on. The shuttle's sensors started going crazy as soon as it touched the outer leaves. Thick, rope-like vines immediately wrapped around the ship's hull. Jake felt the shuttle being pulled sideways by something incredibly strong. "What the hell?" Jake muttered, fighting with the controls. The vines weren't just touching his ship. They were actively grabbing it, like huge green hands trying to drag it in different directions. The shuttle's metal hull started making strange scraping sounds. Through the window, Jake could see the vines were covered in sharp thorns that scraped against the artificial materials of his ship. Wherever the thorns touched metal or plastic, they seemed to cut deeper, as if they were specifically designed to destroy artificial things. "New horizon? I'm having some trouble with the landing," Jake reported, trying to keep his voice calm as the shuttle spun slowly in the grip of the vines. "The local plant life is more active than expected. Jake, get out of there if you need." "Two," Captain Wong's voice crackled through the static. "No, wait," Jake said, studying what was happening outside. "I think I understand something." He watched carefully as the vines continued to attack his shuttle. They wrapped around the metal landing gear and the synthetic hull panels, but they completely ignored a small wooden toolbox that had fallen out of his storage compartment. The vines passed right over the wood as if it didn't exist. "They're not attacking me," Jake realized. "They're attacking artificial materials. Metal, plastic, synthetics. But they ignore natural materials completely." Jake quickly started stripping off his synthetic uniform jacket and boots. Underneath, he wore a simple cotton shirt and had packed leather boots in his emergency kit. As soon as he changed into natural materials, he felt more confident about his theory. The shuttle finally crashed through the canopy and landed hard on a thick branch about 200 feet above the ground. Jake could hear the metal groaning as the vines continued their assault on his ship. Through the windows, he could see the acid-filled swamp far below, just like the alien reports had described. "Landing successful," Jake reported. "I'm about 200 feet up in the trees. The shuttle took some damage, but I'm safe." Jake grabbed his emergency pack, which was made of canvas and leather, and carefully opened the shuttle door. The moment he stepped outside, the attacking vines seemed to lose interest in him completely. They continued destroying his shuttle, but they didn't even touch him as he walked past them. The branch he stood on was enormous, easily 30 feet wide and perfectly stable. It was like standing on a natural bridge. Around him, the jungle was alive with sounds and movement, but none of it seemed threatening. Birds flew between the trees. Small animals scurried along the branches. Everything seemed curious about him, but not hostile. Jake pulled out his scanner and started taking readings. The air was perfectly breathable for humans. The temperature was warm but comfortable. The humidity was high but not unbearable. Most importantly, the radiation levels were actually lower than Earth normal. "This is incredible," Jake said into his communicator. "The environment up here is almost perfect for human life. It's like the trees create their own climate zone." He walked along the massive branch, testing its stability. The wood was incredibly strong, stronger than most construction materials he'd worked with on Earth. Natural grooves in the bark provided perfect footing. Side branches created natural handholds and guardrails. "Jake," Captain Wong's voice came through his communicator. "What's your status? Can you establish a temporary shelter?" Jake looked around at the network of branches surrounding him. To his engineer's eye, he could see the possibilities immediately. The trees had grown in a way that created natural platforms and connections. It was almost like they had designed themselves to be lived in. "Captain, I think I can do better than a temporary shelter," Jake replied. "I think I can build something permanent." Jake spent the rest of the day exploring the area around his landing site. The more he saw, the more excited he became. The trees, weren't just randomly grown. They formed a complex three-dimensional structure that was perfect for construction. Large horizontal branches created natural floors. Vertical supports were already in place. The trees had even grown in ways that created natural drainage systems for rainwater. It was like someone had planned a city and then grown it instead of building it. As evening approached, Jake started gathering materials for his first shelter. He collected fallen branches, strips of bark, and long grasses that grew on the tree trunks. Everything he needed was readily available, and the jungle seemed happy to provide it. He found a spot where three large branches met, creating a natural corner. Using techniques he'd learned from camping as a child combined with his engineering knowledge, Jake began building a simple platform shelter. The work went surprisingly well. The branches fit together perfectly, as if they had grown specifically to be used this way. The bark strips wove together like natural rope. Even the leaves seemed designed to shed water and provide insulation. New Horizon, this is Jake reporting. At the end of day 1, he said as he finished his basic shelter, I've established a secure position about 200 feet above ground level. The environment is not only survivable, it's actually quite comfortable. How's your supply situation? Captain Wong asked. Jake looked at his emergency pack. Good. I've got enough food and water for several days, but more importantly, I think I can supplement with local resources. There are fruit trees here, and I can collect rainwater easily. And the dangers the aliens reported? Jake looked down toward the dark swamp below. He could hear strange sounds and see occasional movement in the acid water. The ground level is definitely dangerous, just like they said. But up here in the trees, it's completely different. It's like living in a different world. As night fell, Jake lay in his simple shelter and listened to the jungle around him. Instead of the terrifying death world the aliens had described, he heard a complex symphony of life. The trees themselves seemed to pulse gently, almost like they were breathing. You know what, Captain? Jake said softly into his communicator. I think the aliens were wrong about this place. It's not uninhabitable. It's just uninhabitable for anyone who tries to fight it instead of working with it. Jake fell asleep that night with plans already forming in his mind. He wouldn't just survive on Verdania. He would build something amazing here. Something that would prove that humans could thrive anywhere, as long as they were smart enough to adapt. Jake woke up on his second day feeling more energetic than he had in months. The gentle swaying of the tree branch had given him the best night's sleep he could remember. Sunlight filtered through the green canopy above, creating beautiful patterns of light and shadow across his simple shelter. New Horizon, this is Jake with my morning report, he said into his communicator while stretching. Day 2 beginning. Weather is perfect, and I'm ready to start some serious construction. Good morning, Jake, came Captain Wong's voice. How... Did you sleep in a tree? Jake laughed. Better than I sleep on the ship, actually. These trees are incredibly stable. I barely felt any movement at all. Jake climbed out of his shelter and looked around with fresh eyes. Yesterday, he had been focused on survival. Today, he could see the real potential of this place. The network of branches around him formed natural pathways between different areas. Some branches were so wide they could easily support buildings. Others connected different levels like natural staircases. He pulled out his damaged shuttle's salvage kit and began carefully removing useful materials. The vines had destroyed most of the metal and plastic components, but they had left anything made of natural materials completely untouched. Jake collected wood panels, rope, canvas, and even some ceramic components that the vines seemed to ignore. Interesting, Jake muttered as he worked. They don't just ignore natural materials. They ignore anything that's been processed naturally, too. Ceramics, treated wood, even some synthetic materials that are made from plant fibers. Jake spent the morning designing his first real structure. Using his engineering training, he calculated load distributions and stress points. But instead of working against the tree, he designed everything to work with its natural growth patterns. He selected 3 massive branches that formed a triangle, about 50 feet from his temporary shelter. Each branch was more than 20 feet wide, plenty of space for construction. The branches met about 30 feet above a lower platform, creating a perfect foundation for a multi-level structure. Jake started by weaving together strips of bark and plant fibers to create strong rope. The process was surprisingly easy. The jungle provided exactly the materials he needed, almost as if it wanted to help. The bark came off dead trees in long, perfect strips. Vines grew in exactly the right thickness for different construction needs. Day 2, progress report, Jake said into his communicator as he worked. I'm beginning construction of a permanent shelter, using natural materials exclusively, integrated with the existing tree structure. How long do you think it will take? Captain Wong asked. Jake looked at his plans and then at the materials around him. At this rate, I think I can have a basic structure complete in 3 days, maybe less. As Jake worked, he began to notice something strange. The tree itself seemed to be helping him. When he needed a branch in a specific place for structural support, he would find one growing exactly where he needed it. When he required a flat surface, he would discover that the bark had grown smooth in just the right spot. At first, Jake thought it was just coincidence. But as the day progressed, the pattern became too obvious to ignore. The tree was actively participating in his construction. New horizon. I need to report something unusual, Jake said during his afternoon break. I think the trees here might be semi-intelligent. Explain, Captain Wong replied. They're helping me build. I don't mean they're just providing materials. I mean they're actually growing in ways that support my construction. When I started weaving support cables this morning, new shoots began growing in exactly the right places to anchor them. There was a long pause before Captain Wong responded. Jake, are you feeling all right? Have you eaten anything unusual? I'm fine, Captain. I know how it sounds, but I'm documenting everything. The trees are definitely responding to my construction efforts. They seem to understand what I'm trying to do, and they want to help. Jake continued working through the afternoon, and the evidence kept mounting. When he needed a corner brace, a thick vine grew into position overnight. When he required drainage for rainwater, small channels appeared in the bark. When he was looking for a way to connect 2 platforms, a new branch began growing between them. By evening, Jake had completed the foundation of his main structure. It was a circular platform about 30 feet across, built where the 3 large branches intersected. The platform was incredibly strong, much stronger than anything he could have built with artificial materials. End of day 2 report, Jake said as he admired his work. Foundation complete. The structure is solid enough to support several buildings. Materials are abundant, and the construction is proceeding faster than expected. What about food and water? Captain Wong asked. Jake pointed to several fruit trees within easy reach of his platform. Food is everywhere. These fruits are delicious and nutritious. I found several varieties that taste like earth fruits but with better nutrition profiles. And water isn't a problem at all. Jake had set up a rainwater collection system using large leaves and hollow sections of dead branches. The system worked perfectly, providing more clean water than he could use. The jungle's natural filtration Systems made the water cleaner than most municipal water supplies on Earth. I'm also finding materials for more advanced construction, Jake continued. There are trees here that produce natural rubber. Others have bark that works like cork for insulation. Some vines are so strong they're better than steel cable for their weight. As night fell, Jake noticed something else remarkable. The trees began to glow softly, not bright enough to hurt his eyes, but enough to provide gentle illumination throughout the canopy. Bioluminescent organisms created a natural lighting system that was both beautiful and functional. The more I explore this place, the more I'm convinced the aliens completely misunderstood it, Jake said as he settled into his improved shelter for the night. They saw a hostile environment because they tried to impose their technology on it. But if you work with the jungle instead of against it, it's incredibly supportive. Jake lay on his comfortable bed made of woven plant fibers and thought about his plans for tomorrow. He would complete the walls of his main structure and begin work on specialized areas. A workshop, storage space, maybe even a kitchen area. "Captain," Jake said softly into his communicator, "I think I'm going to need more than a week here." "Why? Are you having problems?" "No," Jake replied, looking up at the glowing canopy above him. "I'm having the opposite of problems. I think I'm going to build something amazing here, something that will change how we think about living with alien environments." Jake drifted off to sleep, listening to the gentle sounds of the jungle night. Tomorrow he would continue building not just a shelter, but a home. And maybe, if he was really successful, he would build something that could become a community. The tree swayed gently in the night breeze, and Jake smiled in his sleep. He was exactly where he belonged. Jake woke up on day 4 to find that the tree had grown a perfect handrail along the edge of his platform overnight. He stared at it for several minutes, running his fingers along the smooth wood. The rail was exactly the right height and thickness for human hands, curved in all the right places for maximum comfort and safety. "Good morning to you, too," Jake said to the tree, patting its massive trunk. He was no longer surprised when the tree seemed to respond. He could feel a slight vibration through the wood, almost like a contented purr. Jake's main platform was now complete, with walls made of woven branches and bark that provided privacy while still allowing air to flow freely. The structure was weatherproof but not closed off from the jungle around it. He had learned that working with the environment was always better than fighting it. "New horizon, this is Jake beginning day 4, he reported while eating breakfast. The fruits he had collected were incredibly diverse. Some tasted like apples, others like tropical fruits he had never experienced before. All of them were more nutritious than anything in his emergency rations. "Morning, Jake," Captain Wong replied. "How's the construction progressing?" "Ahead of schedule," Jake said, looking at his plans. "I've completed the main living area and I'm ready to start expanding. Today, I want to begin work on specialized structures." Jake had spent the previous evening designing a complete treehouse village. Not just one building, but multiple structures connected by walkways and bridges. He envisioned workshops, storage areas, recreational spaces, and even guest quarters for visitors. The first expansion would be a workshop platform. Jake had identified a perfect location about 40 feet away from his main platform, where 2 large branches created a natural L-shaped foundation. The space would be ideal for processing materials and building furniture. Jake began by constructing a suspension bridge between his main platform and the workshop site. Using techniques he had learned from studying old engineering texts, he wove strong vines into cables and attached them to the most solid branches he could find. As he worked, Jake continued to notice the tree's helpful responses. When he needed to anchor a cable, a new growth would appear in exactly the right location. When he required additional support, branches would thicken overnight. The jungle seemed to understand his plans and actively participate in making them work. The cooperation I'm getting from the local ecosystem is remarkable, Jake reported during his midday break. It's like the trees want to be part of a community. They're not just tolerating my construction, they're improving it. Jake, Captain Wong's voice carried a note of concern. You're starting to sound like you think the trees are actually intelligent. I'm not ruling it out, Jake replied honestly. The responses are too consistent and too helpful to be coincidence. Whether it's true intelligence or just a very sophisticated ecosystem response, the result is the same. They're helping me build something amazing. Jake completed his suspension bridge by late afternoon. The walkway was 6 feet wide and incredibly stable, with natural railings grown by the trees themselves. Walking across it felt safer than most bridges built with modern technology. The workshop platform took shape quickly once Jake had access to both sides. The trees provided perfect anchor points for walls and roof supports. Jake designed the space, with large windows, openings between branches that provided natural light while maintaining structural integrity. By evening, Jake had a functional workshop space with areas for different types of construction. He set up stations for weaving plant fibers, working with wood, and processing the various materials the jungle provided. Everything was organized and efficient. End of day 4 report, Jake said as he tested his new workshop. Primary platform, complete suspension bridge operational, workshop platform functional. I now have enough space to begin manufacturing furniture and more advanced structures. What's your timeline looking like? Captain Wong asked. Jake consulted his plans. At this rate, I could have a complete village complex by the end of the week. Multiple platforms, connecting walkways, specialized areas for different functions. It would be big enough for several people to live comfortably. Several people? Captain Wong's voice carried surprise. I've been thinking, Jake said, sitting on the edge of his platform and looking out over the endless green canopy. This place isn't just suitable for human habitation. It's perfect for it. The aliens were wrong because they never tried to understand the environment. They just tried to conquer it. Jake continued planning as night fell and the bioluminescent lighting began to glow around him. He envisioned not just a personal shelter, but a demonstration of how humans could live in harmony with alien environments. A place that could serve as a model for future colonies. Captain, I want to propose something, Jake said into his communicator. I'm listening. When my week is up, instead of leaving, I'd like to request additional supplies and maybe a few volunteers. I think we could establish a permanent research station here, maybe even a small colony. There was a long pause before Captain Wong responded. Jake, that's a big decision. You're talking about abandoning our original mission. I'm talking about starting a new mission, Jake corrected. The aliens have declared this planet uninhabitable. If we can prove them wrong, if we can show that humans can not only survive here but thrive, it changes everything. It proves that there are no truly uninhabitable worlds, just worlds that require different approaches. Jake spent the evening working on furniture for his expanding complex. Using the workshop space, he crafted chairs, tables, and storage containers from the materials the jungle provided. Everything was functional and comfortable, designed to last for years. As he worked, Jake noticed small animals watching him from nearby branches. They seemed curious rather than fearful, as if they approved of what he was building. Some of them even seemed to be helping, bringing him useful materials or clearing away debris. You know what the best part is? Jake said to his unseen audience. Aboard the New Horizon. I'm not just building structures here, I'm building relationships. The jungle accepts me as part of its community. The trees help me build. The animals share their space with me. It's true cooperation. Jake went to sleep that night with blueprints for tomorrow's expansion spread out beside him. He planned to begin work on a second residential platform. One that could serve as guest quarters when other humans eventually joined him. The tree swayed gently in the night breeze, and Jake felt completely at home. He was no longer just surviving on an alien world, he was becoming part of it, and tomorrow he would continue building something that would amaze everyone who saw it. In just 4 days, Jake had transformed from a crash survivor into a pioneer, proving that humans could adapt to and thrive in environments that other species found impossible. His treehouse village was becoming reality, one branch at a time. Jake woke up on day 5 to the sound of a shuttle breaking through the canopy. He rushed to the edge of his main platform and looked up to see a familiar vessel carefully descending through the tree branches. Unlike his crash landing, this shuttle moved slowly and deliberately, following the path of least resistance through the jungle. "Jake, this is Amy," came his friend's voice over the communicator. "I hope you have room for company." Jake grinned widely as he watched Amy's shuttle touch, down gently on a large branch about 100 feet away. The vines that had attacked his artificial shuttle barely touched hers. Amy had clearly learned from his experience and modified her approach. "Amy, what are you doing here?" Jake called out as his friend climbed out of her shuttle. "Captain Wong decided you shouldn't have all the fun," Amy replied, shouldering a large pack made of natural materials. "Plus, she figured you could use some help with the more complex engineering." Amy Carter was a specialist in sustainable construction, with years of experience building structures that worked with natural environments rather than against them. She was exactly the person Jake needed to take his treehouse village to the next level. "Welcome to New Canopy," Jake said as Amy crossed a temporary rope bridge he had quickly strung between her landing site and his platform. Amy stopped in the middle of the bridge and looked around in amazement. "Jake, this is incredible. You've built more in 5 days than most construction teams manage in a month." "I had help," Jake said, patting the nearest tree trunk. "The jungle has been very cooperative." Amy spent the morning touring Jake's existing structures. She was particularly impressed with the workshop platform and the quality of construction Jake had achieved using only natural materials. "Your engineering is solid," she told him as they stood in the workshop. "But I can see where we could improve efficiency and add some more advanced features." "Such as?" Amy pulled out her own set of plans. "Waste processing systems, water purification, maybe even some basic power generation using biological processes. I've been studying the data you've been sending back, and I think we can create a completely self-sustaining settlement." Jake's eyes lit up. "You're thinking permanent colony, not just research station. I'm thinking we prove that humans can build communities anywhere in the universe," Amy replied. "Starting right here." They spent the rest of the morning planning the next phase of construction. Amy had brought specialized tools made from ceramic and natural materials, plus supplies that would let them build more sophisticated structures. "The key is integration," Amy explained as they worked on the plans. "We don't want to build human structures in a jungle setting. We want to build jungle structures that humans can live in." Their first joint project was a central hub, a large circular platform that would serve as the heart of their growing village. Jake had already identified the perfect location, where 6 massive branches converged about 60 feet above the ground. "This will be our town center," Jake said as they began construction. "Meeting space, community kitchen, maybe even entertainment area." The work went much faster with 2 people. Amy's engineering expertise, combined with Jake's hands-on experience with the local materials, made them an incredibly effective team. The trees seemed to respond even more enthusiastically to their joint efforts, growing support structures and providing materials even faster than before. "Have you noticed," Amy said as they wove wall panels for the hub, "that the trees seem to anticipate what we need?" "You see it too?" Jake asked, relieved that he wasn't imagining things. Hard to miss. "This morning I was thinking we needed a water source for the hub, and I found a natural spring bubbling up through a hollow in one of the main branches. That doesn't happen by coincidence." By afternoon, they had completed the basic structure of the central hub. It was an impressive circular space, 30 feet across, with openings between the branches that provided natural windows and ventilation. The floor was a beautiful pattern of interwoven branches that was both decorative and incredibly strong. "New Horizon, this is Jake with the Day 5 report," he said as they took a break to admire their work. "Amy has arrived safely, and we've completed construction of a central community space. Progress is accelerating significantly." "How's Amy? Adapting to tree life?" Captain Wong asked. "Like she was born for it," Jake replied, watching Amy test the structural integrity of their new platform. "Having someone with her expertise here makes a huge difference." Amy had also brought news from the ship. "Captain Wong says there are 3 more volunteers who want to join us," she told Jake. "Ben Rodriguez, the botanist, Katie Johnson from communications, and Rick Mason, our pilot." "More people." Jake felt a thrill of excitement. "We'd need more residential space." "Which is exactly what I'm here to help you build," Amy said with a smile. "I'm thinking we design individual living pods connected to the central hub by covered walkways. Each person gets privacy, but we maintain the community feeling." They spent the evening planning a complete village layout. 6 residential platforms arranged around the central hub, with the workshop space and storage areas connected by an elevated walkway system. The design would accommodate up to 12 people comfortably, with room for expansion if needed. "The beauty of this design," Amy explained as they worked, "is that it's completely modular. We can add new sections as we need them. The trees provide all the structural support we could want." As night fell and the bioluminescent lighting began to glow, Amy experienced the jungle's evening transformation for the first time. She watched, in wonder, as the entire canopy came alive with soft, colorful light. "Jake, this is magic," she whispered, as glowing creatures flowed between the branches like living stars. "Wait until you see it rain," Jake said. "The whole jungle turns into a light show." Amy settled into the guest sleeping area Jake had prepared for her, a comfortable space in the main platform with walls that could be open to the jungle or closed for privacy. The bed was made of woven plant fibers and was surprisingly comfortable. "I understand why you don't want to leave," Amy said as she listened to the gentle sounds of the jungle night. "This place feels more like home than most places I've actually lived." "Tomorrow we start building the residential pods," Jake said. "By the time the others arrive, we'll have a real community ready for them." "Jake," Amy said thoughtfully, "what we're building here isn't just a village. It's proof that humans can adapt to any environment if we're willing to work with it instead of against it." "That's exactly what I was hoping for," Jake replied. "The aliens think this planet is uninhabitable because they tried to force their way of life onto it. We're showing that there's a better way." Jake fell asleep that night listening to Amy's quiet breathing and the gentle sounds of the jungle around them. For the first time since landing on Verdania, he wasn't alone. His treehouse village was becoming a real community, and tomorrow, they would continue building something that would change how the galaxy thought about impossible worlds. The trees swayed gently in the night breeze, and somewhere in the distance, Jake could hear the sound of new growth. Branches extending, leaves unfurling, the jungle itself expanding to accommodate its newest residents. Jake was awakened on day 6 by the sound of not one, but 3 shuttles making their way through the canopy. He and Amy rushed to the central hub platform to watch as Ben Rodriguez, Katie Johnson, and Rick Mason carefully guided their vessels to landing spots that Jake had marked the night before. "Welcome to New Canopy," Jake called out as his friends emerged from their shuttles. "Population just doubled." Ben Rodriguez was the first to cross the rope bridges to the main platform. As the ship's botanist, he immediately began examining the plant life around him with professional interest. His eyes grew wide as he took in the incredible diversity of species. "Jake, this ecosystem is unlike anything in our databases," Ben said, running his hands along the bark of the massive support tree. "These trees aren't just cooperating with your construction. They're actively participating in it." Katie Johnson arrived next, carrying several cases of communication equipment. As the New Horizons communications specialist, she had volunteered to establish a permanent link between the treehouse village and the ship. "The canopy is interfering with normal communications," she explained as she set up her equipment. "But I think I can work with the tree's natural electrical systems to create a biological communication network." Rick Mason, their pilot, was amazed by the engineering quality of the structures Jake and Amy had built. "This is better construction than most space stations I've seen," he said, testing the stability of the platforms. "And you built it all in less than a week." 6 days, Jake corrected with a grin. "And we're just getting started." Amy had spent the morning preparing for the new arrivals. She had designed individual residential pods for each person, positioned around the central hub like the petals of a flower. Each pod would be private but connected to the community areas by covered walkways. "Ben, your pod has extra growing space for botanical research," Amy explained as she showed him the plans. "Katie, yours has dedicated space for communication. Equipment. Rick, yours includes a workshop area for shuttle maintenance." Ben was particularly excited about the research possibilities. "The plant diversity here is incredible. I'm seeing species that seem to be combinations of Earth plants and completely alien characteristics. It's like the jungle is actively evolving to support human life." "That's not as crazy as it sounds," Jake said. "We've been documenting the tree's responses to our construction. They seem to understand what we need and adapt to provide it." Katie began setting up her communication network immediately. Using bioelectric sensors, she tapped into the tree's natural electrical systems. Within hours, she had established a communication grid that used the trees themselves as transmission lines. "This is amazing," Katie said as she tested the system. "The trees are better conductors than most artificial systems. And the network is self-repairing. If one tree is damaged, the others automatically route around it." The afternoon was spent in intensive construction. With 5 people working together, the village expanded rapidly. Each person's specialized skills contributed to making the community more sophisticated and self-sufficient. Ben immediately began establishing food production systems. He identified several native plants that could be cultivated to supplement their Earth food supplies. More importantly, he found ways to enhance the native plants using Earth agricultural techniques. "I can create a sustainable food system that will support a community of 50 people, Ben reported as he worked in his new growing areas. The soil quality up here in the trees is actually better than most agricultural land on Earth. Rick focused on transportation and access systems. He designed a series of platforms that would serve as landing pads for shuttles, connected to the main village by a network of zip lines and mechanical lifts. We need to think about how to bring supplies and people up here safely, Rick explained, as he worked on the lift system. These platforms will let us move heavy equipment up from ground level without disturbing the jungle ecosystem. Katie's communication system proved to be more advanced than anyone had expected. By evening, she had established not just contact with the New Horizon, but a permanent data link that could transmit detailed information about their activities. "Captain Wong, this is Katie reporting from New Canopy," she said into her new bioelectric communication system. "We now have full communication capabilities and a permanent settlement of 5 people. How's everyone adapting?" Captain Wong's voice came through clearly, with better quality than their previous communications. "Better than we hoped," Katie replied. "The jungle environment is incredibly supportive of human life. We're not just surviving here, we're thriving." Amy spent the day coordinating construction and ensuring that all the new structures integrated properly with Jake's original design. Her experience with sustainable building techniques proved invaluable as the community grew more complex. The key is maintaining the balance between human needs and natural systems, Amy explained as they worked. "Every structure we build has to enhance the jungle ecosystem, not compete with it." By evening, New Canopy had transformed from a simple shelter into a genuine village. 5 residential pods surrounded the central hub, connected by covered walkways, that protected residents from weather while maintaining open-air circulation. The workshop area had been expanded to accommodate multiple projects simultaneously. "End of Day 6 report," Jake said as the 5 humans gathered in the central hub for their first community dinner. "New Canopy is now home to 5 permanent residents. All major systems are operational, and the community is completely self-sufficient." "What's your assessment of long-term viability?" Captain Wong asked. Ben answered first. "From a botanical perspective, this environment could support a much larger population. The food production systems I'm developing could feed hundreds of people. Communication systems are better than most established colonies," Katie added. "The bioelectric network is faster and more reliable than artificial systems." "Construction capabilities are unlimited," Amy reported. "We can expand this village indefinitely using local materials. The trees provide better building materials than most manufactured products. Transportation and logistics are completely manageable," Rick concluded. "We can move people and supplies efficiently without damaging the environment." Jake looked around at his friends, his neighbors, and felt a deep sense of accomplishment. "Captain, in 6 days, we've gone from 1 crash survivor to a functioning community of 5. We've proven that this planet isn't uninhabitable. It's a paradise for anyone smart enough to work with it instead of against it." As night fell and the bioluminescent lighting began to glow, the 5 humans sat together on the central platform, sharing a meal made from both Earth supplies and local plants that Ben had identified as safe and nutritious. "You know what we've really proven?" Amy said as she looked out over their growing village. "We've proven that there's no such thing as an uninhabitable world. There are just worlds that require different approaches." Jake nodded, watching the glowing lights dance through the canopy around them. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities for expansion. But tonight, he was content to sit with his friends in the heart of a jungle that had become home. New Canopy was no longer just his project. It was their community, and it was just the beginning. The sleek alien vessel broke through Verdania's atmosphere with the confidence of advanced technology and superior firepower. Commander Velthar of the Andorian Federation had been sent by the Galactic Council to investigate the impossible reports, coming from the planet that had been declared uninhabitable just 2 weeks earlier. "Maintain scanning protocols," Commander Velthar ordered his bridge crew. His blue-skinned features showed the skepticism common to his species when dealing with human claims. "If there are actually humans surviving down there, we need to document their condition before we extract them." The ship's sensors immediately began having problems as they approached the dense canopy. Just like every previous alien expedition, their advanced technology seemed unable to penetrate the thick jungle cover effectively. "Commander," reported Science Officer Zalith, "our sensors are detecting artificial structures in the canopy, but the readings are inconsistent with known construction materials." "Elaborate," Commander Velthar said, moving to the science station. "The structures appear to be made of organic materials, but they're showing stress tolerance patterns that exceed most manufactured building components. It's as if someone has built a city using living trees as construction materials." Commander Velthar frowned. "That's impossible. No known species has the technology to integrate construction with living ecosystems at that level." "Sir, communications," Officer Yelandra called out. "We're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's coming through biological channels. The trees themselves seem to be conducting the signal." "Put it through." Katie's voice came through the ship's speakers with crystal clarity. "Alien vessel, this is Katie Johnson of the Human Settlement New Canopy. Welcome to Verdania. We've been expecting you." Commander Velthar stared at his communication officer in disbelief. "How is that possible? Biological communication networks are purely theoretical." "Not anymore," Katie's voice replied cheerfully. "Would you like a guided tour of our village? We have landing platforms prepared for your shuttle." Commander Velthar had been prepared for many things. Finding human survivors clinging to life, discovering evidence of human deaths, maybe even finding abandoned equipment. He had not been prepared for humans who sounded happy and confident, offering guided tours of their settlement. "Prepare a shuttle," he ordered. "Full away team. I want to see this for myself." 30 minutes later, Commander Velthar and his team of 4 specialists were descending through the canopy in their heavily armored shuttle. Unlike the gentle approach the humans had learned to use, the alien shuttle fought its way through the jungle with predictable results. Vines immediately began attacking the artificial materials of their shuttle. The pilot struggled to maintain control as the jungle seemed to actively resist their intrusion. "There," pointed Navigation Officer Sultan. "I can see the human structures." Commander Velthar looked out the shuttle window and felt his certainty about the universe shift slightly. Below them was not a desperate survival shelter, but a genuine village. Multiple platforms connected by elegant walkways, all integrated seamlessly with the living trees. It was architecture unlike anything he had ever seen. "How is this possible?" he murmured. Jake was waiting on the landing platform as the alien shuttle touched down. He wore simple clothes made from plant fibers and moved with the confident ease of someone completely at home in his environment. Behind him, the other 4 humans stood ready to greet their visitors. "Welcome to New Canopy," Jake said as the aliens emerged from their damaged shuttle. "I'm Jake Martinez, founder of this community." Commander Velthar studied Jake carefully. The human looked healthy, well-fed, and completely relaxed. There were no signs of the stress and desperation that should characterize survivors on a death world. "I am Commander Velthar of the Andorian Federation," he replied formally. The Galactic Council has sent me to investigate reports of human activity on this uninhabitable planet. Uninhabitable? Amy laughed as she joined them. Commander, you're standing in one of the most habitable places in the galaxy. You just have to know how to live with it instead of fighting it. The alien team spent the next several hours touring New Canopy, and their amazement grew with each structure they examined. Ben showed them the food production systems that were already providing fresh vegetables and fruits. Katie demonstrated the bioelectric communication network that connected the entire village. Rick explained the transportation systems that moved people and materials efficiently through the three-dimensional jungle environment. This is remarkable engineering, admitted Engineer Colvin, examining the construction of the central hub. These joints are stronger than most manufactured connections, but they're made entirely from organic materials. The trees help, Jake explained. Once they understand what you're trying to build, they actively participate in the construction process. You're suggesting the trees are intelligent? Commander Velthar asked skeptically. I'm suggesting they're cooperative, Jake replied. Whether that's intelligence or just a very sophisticated ecosystem response, the result is the same. They want to support life, not fight it. Science Officer Zalith was particularly fascinated by Ben's botanical research. These hybrid plants shouldn't be possible. You're showing genetic adaptations that would normally take thousands of years of evolution. The jungle seems to accelerate adaptation when it benefits the overall ecosystem, Ben explained. It's like the entire planet is one big cooperative organism that wants to support as much life as possible. As evening approached and the bioluminescent lighting began to glow, the alien visitors experienced the jungle's transformation. Commander Velthar stood on the central platform, watching lights dance through the canopy like living constellations. This is beautiful, he admitted quietly. This is home, Jake replied. Commander, your people declared this planet uninhabitable because you tried to impose your technology on it. We succeeded because we learned to work with it. The Galactic Council will want a full report, Commander Velthar said. This changes everything we thought we knew about planetary colonization. We'd be happy to teach others, Amy offered. The techniques we've developed here could work on dozens of planets that have been written off as uninhabitable. Commander Velthar spent the night in New Canopy, sleeping in a guest pod that the humans had prepared. The comfort of the organic bedding and the gentle swaying of the tree were unlike anything he had experienced in his years of space travel. In the morning, he called his ship. Science Team Alpha, this is Commander Velthar. Cancel the extraction mission. The humans are not in distress. Repeat, the humans are not in distress. Sir, came the confused reply from his ship. Prepare a full scientific survey team. We're going to be here for several days documenting the most remarkable colonization success in galactic history. As his team prepared to extend their stay, Commander Velthar looked around at the thriving village the humans had built in just 1 week. Everything he had been taught about planetary colonization, about the limits of organic construction, about the impossibility of integrating with hostile ecosystems, had been proven wrong by 5 humans, with simple tools and remarkable adaptability. Mr. Martinez, he said to Jake, I believe your species has just changed the way the galaxy thinks about impossible worlds. Jake smiled, patting the trunk of the massive tree that supported their village. Commander, we're just getting started. 3 months after Jake Martinez first crashed through Verdania's canopy, New Canopy had become the most famous settlement in the galaxy. The village now sprawled across nearly a full square mile of jungle canopy, home to over 50 humans and a dozen alien researchers who had come to study the revolutionary construction techniques. Jake stood on the observation platform he had built at the top of the tallest tree, looking out over his creation. The village below looked like a magical city from an ancient fairy tale, with elegant walkways connecting dozens of platforms at different levels. Bioluminescent lighting created a gentle glow throughout the settlement, while the sound of human laughter mixed with the natural symphony of jungle life. "Hard to believe it all started with one crashed shuttle," Amy said, joining him on the platform. She now served as New Canopy's chief of construction, overseeing the constant expansion, as more people arrived from across human space. "Sometimes I think the shuttle crash was the best thing that ever happened to me," Jake replied, watching children play on the lower platforms. Several families had moved to New Canopy permanently, drawn by the unique lifestyle and unlimited opportunities for sustainable development. Ben approached them, carrying a tablet full of research data. As the settlement's director of environmental integration, he had documented over 300 species of plants that actively cooperated with human construction efforts. The Galactic Council has officially established the Jake Martinez Protocol for planetary colonization, Ben announced. "It's now the standard approach for any planet previously classified as uninhabitable," Jake laughed. "They named it after me? You revolutionized how the galaxy thinks about hostile environments," Amy reminded him. "Every major species is now sending teams here to learn your techniques." The protocol that had emerged from New Canopy's success was elegantly simple. Instead of fighting alien environments, colonists should study them, understand them, and find ways to become part of them. The approach had already led to successful colonies on 6 other worlds that had previously been written off as impossible. Katie's voice came through the bioelectric communication system that now connected every platform in the village. "Jake, you have visitors at the main landing pad. It's Ambassador Zektar from the Kresh Empire." Jake made his way down through the village, using the system of elevators, slides, and zip lines that Rick had designed for efficient transportation. The settlement was so well integrated with the jungle that moving through it felt more like flying through a forest than walking through a city. Ambassador Zektar was waiting on the landing platform, looking considerably more humble than he had during the Galactic Council meeting months earlier. The reptilian diplomat was accompanied by a team of Kresh engineers and scientists. "Mr. Martinez," Ambassador Zektar said, bowing formally, "I have come to request your assistance with a matter of great importance to my people." "What can I do?" "For you, Ambassador?" Jake asked, gesturing for the group to follow him to the central hub where they could talk comfortably. "The Kresh Empire has 3 colony worlds that are failing," Ambassador Zektar explained as they walked through the village. "We used traditional conquest methods, cleared the land, built artificial structures, imposed our technology on the environment. The planets are fighting back. Crops are failing, structures are collapsing, and the colonists are becoming sick." They reached the central hub, where several other humans and aliens were gathered for the daily community meeting. New Canopy operated as a true cooperative, with decisions made by consensus and everyone contributing according to their abilities. "You want us to help you save your colonies?" Jake asked. "We want you to teach us how to live with planets instead of conquering them," Ambassador Zektar replied. "My people are proud, but we are not stupid. You have proven that there is a better way." Jake looked around at his friends and neighbors. Amy nodded encouragingly. Ben was already pulling up data about the failing Kresh colonies. Katie was preparing communication links to gather more information. "We'd be happy to help," Jake said finally. "But you need to understand something. This isn't just about construction techniques or agricultural methods. It's about changing how you think about your relationship with the environment." "We understand," Ambassador Zektar said. "We are prepared to learn." Over the following weeks, New Canopy became a training center for sustainable colonization. Teams from the Kresh Empire, the Andorian Federation, and 6 other species came to study the methods that had transformed a death world into a thriving community. Jake found himself teaching classes on adaptive engineering. Amy led workshops on sustainable construction. Ben shared his knowledge of cooperative agriculture. Katie demonstrated bioelectric communication systems. Rick taught transportation planning that worked with natural systems instead of against them. The most important lesson, Jake told a group of alien students, is that every planet wants to support life. You just have to learn to speak its language. The success stories began coming in within months. The failing Kresh colonies were transformed, using New Canopy techniques. Planets that had resisted colonization for decades suddenly became hospitable when approached with cooperation instead of conquest. Jake was offered positions as chief colonial advisor for 3 different governments, but he turned them all down. New Canopy was his home, and he had no desire to leave the jungle that had taught him so much. "Mr. Martinez," Commander Velthar said during one of his regular visits, "you realize that your work here has opened up hundreds of new worlds for colonization? The galaxy's habitable space has effectively doubled." "That's not the real achievement," Jake replied, looking out over the village where humans and aliens work together on new construction projects. "The real achievement is that we've learned to live in harmony with our environment instead of trying to dominate it." As evening fell and the bioluminescent lighting began to glow, Jake walked through his village one more time. Children played in the branches while their parents worked on community projects. Scientists from a dozen species shared research data in the laboratories. Engineers collaborated on new designs that would work on other worlds. New Canopy had grown far beyond anything Jake had imagined when he first crashed through the jungle canopy, but the basic principle remained the same. Work with the environment, not against it. Understand the ecosystem and become part of it. Build communities that enhanced the natural world instead of replacing it. Jake climbed to his original platform, the simple shelter where he had spent his first night on Verdania. He kept it maintained as a reminder of how everything had started. One human, some basic tools, and the willingness to try a different approach. The tree swayed gently in the night breeze, and Jake could feel the contentment of the entire jungle. Ecosystem. Humans had found their place here not as conquerors but as partners. And in doing so, they had shown the galaxy that there were no impossible worlds, only worlds waiting for the right approach. Jake smiled as he listened to the sounds of his thriving community. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new visitors, and new opportunities to prove that humans could adapt to anything the universe offered them. But tonight, he was exactly where he belonged. At home in the trees, surrounded by friends, in a village that had started with one simple idea. What if we tried working with the planet instead of fighting it? The answer had changed everything.